Hello everyone, this is Dr. Rawls. What causes Lyme disease? That's a big question. Most people would answer that question by saying the microbe Borrelia burgdorferi. That was the microbe that was discovered in the original Lyme patients from Lyme, Connecticut back in the 70s. But now we know that there are at least 12 different species of Borrelia worldwide that can cause Lyme disease and Lyme disease-like syndromes. So we know that it's not just one microbe, it's a whole spectrum of microbes. And then when you start looking at the difference between acute Lyme disease, which is an infection with Borrelia, compared to chronic Lyme disease, which is what most people are experiencing, then you start looking at the co-infections. So there's Mycoplasma and Bartonella and Babesia and all these other microbes that can be spread by ticks or are present when there is Lyme disease. So it's not ever just one microbe. There are always other microbes involved. And if you look at these microbes independently, Mycoplasma, Bartonella, Babesia, they can cause very, very similar symptoms to Lyme disease. So technically somebody could have one of these other microbes or several of these other microbes, not have Borrelia, and have all of the symptoms of Lyme disease. But the question really even goes back to the original studies of Lyme disease. Lyme disease was discovered back in 1976 in Lyme, Connecticut. The city was growing and people were moving out into wooded suburbs, and they started getting tick bites, and a group of children and some adults got an acute febrile illness and became definitely sick. They gathered the blood specimens, sent them off, and a researcher by the name of Willy Burgdorfer was the one that was researching this material that had to analyze these specimens. Well, he didn't just find one microbe, he found a number of microbes, and he had to pick one to say, well, what is this coming from? So in his research, he found this microbe that was a form of Borrelia that ended up taking his name, Borrelia burgdorferi, and that's what he defined as the microbe that was causative of the condition that occurred in Lyme, Connecticut. So we've identified that microbe with this disease ever since. But very interestingly, toward the end of his life, Dr. Burgdorfer wrote about the possibility that maybe that wasn't the complete cause, because he also found a species of rickettsia in those samples, which is really interesting. And toward the end of his life, he was questioning, well, was it rickettsia or was it Borrelia? And we know that rickettsia is more apt to cause an acute febrile illness than Borrelia is. So even today, we're not quite sure, and I've come to the conclusion that it's never a microbe. Ticks can carry hundreds of microbes. So when you're trying to answer that question, what causes Lyme disease, it's not as straightforward as it might seem. We know microbes are involved. We know a certain kind of microbes that we define as stealth microbes are involved, but I don't ever look at Lyme disease as an infection with a microbe. So if you'd like to know more about this kind of information and some opinions that might be a little bit contrary to the mainstream, check out my website, rawlsmd.com. And you may want to sign up for our newsletter. I'm constantly trying to write about new ways of looking at this really odd illness that we're having to deal with today. Thanks for watching my video. I hope you found it helpful. Be sure and subscribe to my channel so you don't miss any upcoming videos. And while you're at it, please take the time to leave me a comment. I would really like to know of any questions that you might want answered in future videos. Thanks for watching.